Well, welcome. The fifth part of this series is based around humility. And for me, when I recognised that it was a journey that I was taking, this wasn't a destination that I wanted to get to. You know, I'm having a birthday in a couple of weeks, and I recognised that, you know, for the age that I'm turning and where I want to be on a vocational level, it's really exciting, this next decade that's ahead of me. And I've really humbled myself to find mentors that are 20 years older, 30 years older, who can see for me what I can't see for me. And it takes humility, you know, because when you recognize in yourself that you need to change, you need to perhaps play a bigger game, or you have more potential, then to ask for help and then to follow that path is an uncomfortable position. And so for me, when I was approached by a gentleman who is one of the leading coaches globally, doing some of the most incredible deals, and he started connecting with me and saying, look, I'd really like to work with you, and I'd really like to be a part of a few projects that I'm doing, it brought up a massive amount of resistance for me. Huge amounts of resistance, because success does that. If you think that you can have everything that you want just by working with a mentor, then avoid that person at all costs. You know, I heard a funny story once that, you know, there was a person searching for God, and they wanted to go to the messenger, who was Jesus, and they wanted to find out where he resided. Anyway, so they would spent their entire life going door to door, trying to find, is this the house, is this the house, is this the house? And just as they were about to approach a house, somebody said, there is the enlightened one, in there. I said, really? I've been searching all my life. I said, the search is over. This is the place that you've been searching for all your life. They said, thank you very much, and turned around to go the other way. And they said, well, where are you going? They said, well, no, you've just shown me the door to avoid. Now I can continue on my search. And leisure seekers, when we first started to recognize that, you know, we had two aspects to our business, is that we have two trust names, leisure seekers and leisure lifestyles. And it's kind of like a game. What I find is that a seeker can sometimes enjoy to stay a seeker. They never actually want to live the true, abundant lifestyle that's available to them, because they prefer to be the seeker. And so it's really important that you recognize that I'm in exactly the same process that you're in every single week. You know, by working with the mentors that I have that, you know, are decades ahead in experience, many, many zeros ahead on their net worth, it takes a certain dose of humility to be able to do the things that you're being asked to do and lower the resistance. And so I wanted to do some research on what it was to become humble. This is an area I've struggled with my entire life. Being the youngest of 6 kids, humility is not an attribute that works well in a household. You know, you have to have that guts and the confidence and the courage, and you certainly want to get a bit of a thicker skin than I had in my childhood. But certainly over the times I've realised if I can humble myself to my brothers and sisters, then they can too see for me what I can't see for me, because there's 20 grandkids now from my parents. Everyone can see for me what I can't see for me. And so I've had to humble myself even in the area of home and say, you know, this is hard. Having 3 young children is hard, and yet my sisters will say, it's easy. What you're doing right now is so simple. You wait until they're 14 and 12 and, you know, 10. And I think, oh God, you know, how am I going to be able to help? So when I studied humility, I went where everybody goes to study humility. I Googled it. Okay, and what it said on Google was that true humility is the low but deep and firm foundation of all virtues. So let's consider that. True humility is the low but deep and firm foundation. Okay, so really, to humble yourself, we're going right back to your environment. Have you actually set yourself up on a firm foundation for growth? Because it's low, but it's deep and it's firm. And so, you know, when you're looking for a mentor, you want to find someone who's congruent, who has integrity, who walks their talk, and is actually doing the same process you're doing. Because there's nothing worse, I find, than getting parental advice from people that don't have children. And it's a bit like that in business. If you're going to be talking to someone about a business thing and they have not achieved that result, or they certainly haven't been where you're going, then you're not going to listen. You're going to be hugely resistant. And so the thing that I really found was by creating, I guess, a board of advisors of people that have been around the industry is one aspect. You can have a lawyer, you can have a solicitor, you can have an accountant, but if they're all employees, then they can't give you the lessons that you need from a mentoring perspective. They can be like the teacher's aid that we talked about in segment 1. They can aid you in your journey, and that's fantastic. We all need business aids. We need tools, we need people that can help us with expertise or areas. But when it comes to running and owning a company and growing franchisees and becoming a better leader, then you want to make sure that you humble yourself enough to recognize that the environment you're going to place yourself in needs to be a firm environment. And so the 4 parts of virtues I looked up was right back to what Aristotle and Plato really talked about. And so I wanted to get a real grasp. When I did philosophy at University of Queensland, one of the things that my lecturer would teach me was that we can find most of the answers going back in history. If we really want to learn how to think, then we need to assess, what did the great thinkers of the world do, because that's what they were really, their life's purpose was to sit around and to think. Wouldn't that be a great life? Okay, so for me, I wanted to understand, what are the 4 great virtues? And in fact, the 4 cardinal virtues that came up was, the first one was prudence. And I want us to think about this in the context of franchising. And so it's prudent that we seek the counsel of others. So in fact, when we talk about finding a mentor, if we even loop that back to realizing that to become humble means that you need to counsel. You counsel with yourself, with whatever you believe in as the higher force that's working in you, and you need to listen to that quiet voice that's inside, because it's your journey. So you need to have quiet time every single day, but you also need to counsel with others around what that quiet voice is telling you, so that they can ask you a better question and recognize that, is it the smartest way as well? Is it the legal way? Is it the fastest way? And so it would be imprudent of you not to get the counsel of others. And since we've started working in with law firms like RedChip, accountancy firms, HR companies, financial planners, what I've recognized is in my own business is just how valuable it is to get counseled. Counseling is probably the critical aspect that I have added into our business in the last 5 years, and making sure that every single person's getting one-on-one attention in every different aspect of their life. When you counsel with someone about your health, then you start to realize that your nutrition is your journey. Your mindset around your health is your journey. And so it's really prudent to be able to ask people, this is what I'm eating. What do you think about the macronutrients? What do you think about the timing? Am I drinking enough water? All of the really important questions still come back to these virtues that are the same in business, that it's prudent to ask questions or counsel with other people. The second part of being humble, if we look at it from a virtues point of view, would be to recognize that justice does prevail. Okay, now St. Thomas talked about justice a lot, and justice doesn't actually mean in the courtrooms, which when you're working with lawyers, certainly RedChip lawyers, you assume that what's right is going to win out. This virtue goes deeper than what works out in the court of law, and I like this because within franchising, I got knocked around a little bit. I don't know about you, but certainly I was told some things by some certain people, and my self-image, my confidence level was challenged a lot by what I was witnessing, what I was perceiving, and what I was recognizing. And I had some pretty interesting situations which you'll hear about in my story. But the one thing that I recognized was that I actually understood that I had to let go and surrender that justice would prevail. And that is actually a virtue. When you humble yourself enough and you do the things that you're told to do, then 10 years later, I look back at the people that, cut me down in business, stole business from me, acted unethically, talked behind my back, cut franchise agreements, did all sorts of things. Do you know that justice has always prevailed? Always. And so I have a real trust in the process now, that when I counsel and go from a legal perspective and I ask what are my rights and what are my, then I also need to listen from inside to recognize what's true and what's based on my character do I want to be left in the marketplace? What's the legacy that I want to leave here? And recognise that sometimes it's better just to let things go. And I found through mediation, Peter McLaughlin was the mediator that I went straight to when my franchise agreement was cut by my master franchisor when I was in labour with my first child. And I had a really interesting experience because, he sat me down, we weighed up a lot of the different options, and he gave me some really great feedback and some great things to go away and consider. And I was able to get a result a lot faster within a 4-week period that was really non-confrontational, and I have been loyal to Peter McLaughlin ever since. So you think about it, well, was Peter in sales? Was he trying to sell me something? No, he was really counselling with me around what he'd seen in the marketplace for years and years as a franchise expert. And then he was able to ask me a better question and look at the game from a bigger perspective. Just take the lens back a little bit and look at what the big picture was. And I'm a raving fan around Peter, and everybody knows that because the advice that he gave me was the most congruent and it was the most just. And what happened in the long run was exactly as he predicted. And so for me, I just recognised that, counselling with others isn't an issue, and recognising that I didn't get my money. I didn't get my money back. I got ripped, whatever you want to say. I went backwards big time, and I had a 2-year climb to get my net worth back to where it was when I first entered my franchise. But do you know what happened was the character that I developed and the legacy that I left and the opportunity that I got in that 2-year period as I went from that situation and grew, ended up securing me a future of exactly what I wanted. And so you've got to look at what the end game is, always, and recognise that, for a lot of those people that did those things, that, certain circumstances have happened, and, you're not going to be surprised when you look back after 10 years. Fortitude is the third virtue. And so, they'd say that prudence and justice are virtues through which we decide what needs to be done. Fortitude gives us the strength to do it. And the advice that I was given, when I visited Peter McLaughlin was that, the thing that I had to go away and do was the thing that I feared the most. Because to me, my ego was working in overdrive. And so what he suggested that I should do was going to take a huge amount of strength and courage to be able to back down and be able to apologise and be able to get my desired result for the big picture. And nobody really understood why I was doing what I was doing, because the behaviour was so, contradictory to my character. And it's because I had counsel with somebody that could see the bigger picture and see more for me what I could see for me. And it is going to take courage, I can tell you, the fortitude to get through that following 2 years and the 2 years after that. Because really, the first 2 years was really taking myself back to the same net worth, which I think, to pay out I bought all of the debts of my partners for $1, and I traded out that business as a solo entrepreneur with a brand new baby and pregnant with my second child. So I had two children within 16 months at the same time of paying out, lots of money to investors to be able to secure my character within the network that I had, lost. I'd lost my character in that network. And so for me, it was very, very integral that fortitude became one of the virtues that I sort of held on to. And so, was it humbling? It was the most humbling time of my life, without a doubt, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a mother, as a friend, socially, vocationally, within my marriage. Every single area was tested. But what I recognised was it also hit on the fourth virtue, which was temperance. I had to recognise that I was being tempered at a certain level. And temperance, if we look at, when you put a sword straight into the fire and we mould metal, then we put it into fire and we bang, 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 and then we cool it down underwater and then we put it back in the fire and we do it. What temperance is talking about from a character or a virtue point of view is how much you can withhold the fire. Now, I know within wealth dynamics, when I train wealth dynamics at a high level, is that I am all fire. My energy is blaze energy, and my business partner Tracy is steel. She is full steel. And so temperance meant so much to us, because how much I can endure of that, criticism or coaching or from a steel energy is going to determine how good a coach I will become. Just the same as for her, how much she can endure the fire is how good that she will become, because we can mold each other. And you need business partners that are around you that are equal and opposite within their frequency and their vibrations to be able to bring out the best in you. And you'll know, because your temper will rise when you're around somebody who can see the faults in you and that very easily can correct those faults. How you react and respond is very important. It's also recognizing that temperance is your desire to spend that money that you make. That was a massive thing for me. You know, Kent and I came from very humble beginnings. We're both first generation business owners. You know, our parents had jobs and their parents had jobs and everyone had jobs. So, you know, when we started working and had time, you know, 6 years out of the workforce, raising our little family of 3 kids in 4 years, and, you know, we had money in our bank account, we were debt free. You know, we didn't do the wisest thing with that money because we didn't counsel like we had once counseled around what we should have been investing our money in. And we lost a lot of money because we didn't have the temperance. We didn't understand that just because it's in the bank account doesn't mean you have to spend it all or invest it in high risk activities. And that will take us years to recover. But, you know, once again, you learn from doing, which is what a mentor program is. Find a mentor who's actually learnt from doing, and then don't make those mistakes. Walk through the minefield following someone's footsteps. Don't try to find your own minefield and go first. And so I recognise temperance when we look at within franchising is knowing what your numbers need to be to make the most amount of profit, and then looking at your splits between high, medium and low investment strategy and making sure you are all consistent as spouses, business partners, and aligned as to where that money is going to be going and when. And I've found that as I sit and align couples that are in business, is that often we marry people that are way different to us, which is of course going to be the way opposites attract. But I know for Kent that he was quite happy to give me 10 years to put 100% into high risk, but on the 10th year and 1 day is that we needed a low risk strategy for our investment. And so I thought 10 years, that's heaps of time, no problem, I'll sign on the dotted line. And guess what, he remembered. So 10 years and 1 day he said, you know what, we are not putting any more money into these companies. I'm getting my TV, I'm getting my surround sound. It was time to start enjoying life. Okay, and so temperance for me meant the difference. It was holding back from luxuries or the experiences of travel and those types of things because I was putting 100% back into my company. And, you know, eventually what we recognise is that was how I was living my life. You know, if I was at a party, I'd go 100% fun. You know, there wasn't any ability to be able to block those desires. You know, the food's there, it's an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord, eat everything, open bar, drink everything. You know, what's your issue with temperance that you need to work on from a virtue point of view? And that's been a great learning for me over the last 4 or 5 years, is to reinvent myself and realise that what can I handle and how can I grow and what's the perfect pace for me to be moulded. And I'm going to need that steel that's going to help to get in that fire, to be able to melt that and be able to learn how to mould that. And so that will make more sense when you do some wealth dynamics training, and we really encourage you to do that. And certainly understand from a franchising point of view is some of your franchisees just aren't getting results because of their temper. They just aren't able to hold that for a period of time, and that's a character issue. And so we can work with them around understanding how to be able to maximise that area of their business and be able to put a team of people around them that can handle them and match that energy for what that energy is. So if you're having a challenge with that, then contact us and certainly let us know where your biggest problems are, and we'll help you with those solutions. So I want to wish you all the best. I hope you've enjoyed this 5-part series, and if you're anything like me, you'll start to look for the common clue. So we've looked at following a mentor, we've looked at having the right attitude, we've looked at investing, we've looked at, you know, thinking before we speak, and we've looked at humility. And if you take the first letters of each of those things, then it spells faith. And I want to wrap up this 5-part series with, you know, what I believe true leaders really, really require.